What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast, where every single week we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight top badasses out there dominating their spaces. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves and their families, as well as have a big impact on others. So today, you guys, got another rock star, kick-ass guest on the show, a guy that I actually didn't know, but we have some history together, which is pretty awesome. It's a small world out there. So our guest today, you guys, is a very successful real estate investor, very successful real estate agent, has his own team that he's absolutely crushing it there as well, and also a police officer, right? His real estate journey started as he was a full-time police officer that started working overtime to raise some capital to start investing into real estate, and that has just led into so many amazing successes and continued opportunities that we'll get deep in today. So really stoked and honored to have David GREENE on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
What's up, Josh? Very happy to be here, man.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked, dude. This is killer, man. I mean, you're the first guest that I've ever had on the show that has been able to do what you've done in the way that you've done it, man. And I think it's just so killer. So let's rewind the clocks, though. All right, so when you first got into real estate investing, so you're a police officer. Like, how did the seed even get planted? Like, what led you to wanting to start to get into real estate investing in the first place?
That's such a good question, and it's a funny answer because I really had no aspirations to be a real estate investor, agent, nothing. I was always really good saving money. I worked at restaurants when I was going to college, and I put a lot of money away, and I would work full time. And I went to a cheap college, so I had everything paid for. And when I graduated, I actually had 90 grand in the bank that I'd saved up just from like waiting tables. And I worked at the nice steakhouses that were like an hour away to make more money. And then the economy crashed. So 2008, 2009 hit. I'm now working as a deputy for about a year. And I'm just seeing for sale signs everywhere, right? And a buddy of mine was buying a house, and he decided he was going to leave and go to Bible college, so he was going to lose his earnest money deposit. He told me about it, and I said, well, I'm going to need a house at some point. Maybe I could buy it so you don't lose your money, and I'll just rent it out until I'm ready to live in it. He said, all right, cool. So we went and looked at it. It's like a 5-bedroom house, 2,700 square feet, way bigger than a single guy would ever need. But he had her in a contract at $215,000, and the thing was like 4 years old. I looked up, and during the peak in 2006, it had sold for $565. Now he's got her contract at $215. So I called his agent and I said, hey, I'd like to buy the house. And she said, okay, it's better than nothing. I said, do you think we could do any better on the price? And she said, let me see. Called me back and said, we could do $195. I'm like, all right, do it. So I had no idea how to evaluate a property. I had a very rough idea that I could figure out what the rent would be and make sure it covered my expenses, but I didn't know what those expenses were. I just backed into this thing and ended up buying this puppy and tried to rent it out myself. Got completely taken by a professional tenant that knew what he was doing. It was horrible. Decided I didn't want to quit and just got a property manager instead and realized this is it, man. Like, I can pay people out of the money the house makes me to take care of my business for me. And then I could just go back to work and make more money. So once I started seeing $300-400 a month coming in from this house, and the excess cash flow, I started thinking I need to go buy some more. So I kept an eye out, and another one came out on the street, down the street from my mom, scooped that one up, and that was making another $400 a month or so. And then my grandma passed away, and I bought her house and rented it out. And the next thing I knew, I had 3 rentals, and I was making like $1,200 a month, and realized, hey, there's something to this. But to my, ignorant mind, I didn't know that people actually made a living doing this. I was the only person I knew that I thought I'd found this like big secret, right? So I bought a 4-plex, and that thing was awesome. It made me like a 30% return on my money. And I got this idea like, okay, this is where it's at. I'm committing myself to buying rental properties with working as much as I can and buying as much as I can. And that was 2013, right when the market took off. Like, it felt like overnight it went from you could go 50 grand under on your offers to they were getting 20 offers on every house just so fast. And I spent about 9 months kind of feeling sorry for myself, feeling like I missed the bubble. And then I heard a girl on Fox Business News that was a realtor in Arizona talking about how the market was doing great out there. And I looked at the prices and they made sense, the price to rent ratio. So I flew out there, met with her, started looking at properties, and that was how I started buying out of state.
Yeah. So where, and I don't know if you're still located in the same market at that same point, but where were you living at this time?
I'm still there. I live in like kind of the San Francisco Bay Area, about an hour east. So kind of the area where everybody that works in San Francisco commutes from.
Yep. Yep, love it, dude. All right, so you start buying in Arizona at that point. So you got your three single family detached plus your fourplex.
Right.
Then you start buying out of state. When you started buying out of state, man, were there any obstacles or unforeseen obstacles that you didn't have when you were buying locally that you had to learn to adapt to and overcome to keep continuing that success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can tell you honestly, man, I was too ignorant to know that this was scary. I mean, I just didn't understand that there was a lot of reasons not to invest out of state. I asked my realtor, like, hey, who's going to manage it? She said, I got a property manager. I said, okay, I met him. And then I said, hey, we got to fix these houses to get them ready. Do you know anyone? He said, yeah, I know some people. So I met contractors. And then, from there, I realized, man, people know people. Like, I don't have to fly out to Arizona and interview 4 contractors. I got to talk to a couple property managers and a couple agents that are really good, and they know who to talk to. And what I found is that the better somebody was at their job, the better referrals I would get from them. And I came up with this philosophy that rock stars know rock stars, right? So if I came to you with your experience in real estate right now, and I said, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in Arizona, who do you got? You're going to send me someone really good, because that's the only kind of people you're going to spend your time with, because you demand excellence out of yourself, right? And that was how I basically put together my system of buying houses out of state. You find someone who's great at their job, and you ask them who they know, and then you ask that person who they know, and you ask that person who they know, and eventually you're going to find the people that are the very best at what they do, and you don't need to be there. They need to be there.
Yep. Love it. Well, and that's how our relationship began, right? You said like 5 years ago, you found me online and shot that and connected with one of my teammates that you've been able to buy multiple properties from. So then because you had the other agent that you saw on Fox Business News. And then now, it sounds to me like you might be even using multiple agents in the area. I mean, what advice would you give there for out-of-state agents of not maybe pigeonholing themselves and only using one person, or is it better just to use one person?
No, I think you should use many people. So my philosophy is I have enough capital now that if there's a deal that comes out, I'm going to buy it, right? So using 2 agents isn't taking money away from one. It's not like I can't buy your deal because I bought that one. I tell them, if you find a deal that meets my criteria, I will buy it, period. So whether there's 5, 10, or 1, I'm only limiting myself by just using one person, and I'm not hurting my relationship with the agent because I'm not turning down the deals they bring me to use somebody else. It's better to have more, but it still comes down to the quality. Like, you could go find 10 mediocre agents and all your time will be spent as they send you mediocre deals that you spend all your time analyzing. You really want to find like your core group of people that are good at what they do and know the people that you're going to need to help run your business. And that's like part of my success really came from that referral that you gave me 5 years ago. You referred me to Billy Schneider, and Billy's like one of the best agents I've ever come across. The guy works like a pit bull, and he's really smart and has a lot of integrity. And whenever I would need something, I'd say, hey, Billy, I need someone that can go paint. I need someone that can go fix this. And he'd go ask people in the office, who do you know, and come back with a rock star for me. And that builds your confidence, man. I got to the point where I'm like, I don't even care that I haven't seen this house, right? If I know the people that I need on boots on the ground to go fix it, I'm just buying an income stream, and I just need to find the pieces that can get it so it can produce income.
Yep. So now, okay, so you're in California, right? You're investing in Arizona. You're also investing very heavily in Florida,
yes,
at this point too. So you're somebody that's been able to not just have success in one out-of-state area, but multiple out-of-state areas. So with that being said, whether it's an investor or also, right, we have a lot of realtors that are listening to this show. That and investors are a dream client for us, right? It's repeat over and over business, and with that, I mean, what from the investor side, what kind of questions do you ask to vet them to make sure that they're good? And then what advice would you give to realtors that you're looking for in that realtor so they can get that dream client like yourself?
All right. So I really believe that I can go to any market and put a team together and start buying houses there that I want to. I have a book coming out in December called The Long Distance Real Estate Investor, or Long Distance Real Estate Investing. And it's about how to buy, rehab, and manage properties anywhere you want to go, right? What you need is a group of 4 people. I call them your core 4. You need a deal finder. That's usually an agent or a wholesaler or something like that. You need a lender. You need a property manager. You need a contractor, right? If you want to be the investor that goes and finds an agent to work with you, you need to find agents that know those people. Do you know a lender that will work with investors? Do you know good property managers that know the area and can tell me yes or no if I want to buy a house on that street? And do you know contractors that can do the work, right? If they can't say definitively, yes, I do, and I've done it before, that's probably not the guy for you unless you already have a team in that market. right? So that's the first question you ask. That'll screen a lot of agents out, right? You know as well as I do, most agents get trained to say, don't you just love this kitchen? Can't you see little Johnny running around the backyard, right? That's not the kind of realtor you need when you're working as an investor. What you need is someone who understands what you're looking for and can act decisively to find it. And that's a different kind of person. So other than asking, who do you know that can help us? The questions you need to start asking are like, can you tell me how I would know if a property cash flows or not? Right? Can you tell me how you'll determine the comps that you're going to use and the after repair value that we're going to have? If they've never worked with investors and they don't understand investing, you're already just going over their head, right? You can tell pretty quickly if they have experience. And as an agent, if you want to work with investors, because I'm telling you, if you can work with investors, you have a person that will just guarantee to buy something that you find that makes sense. It's completely on your own shoulders if you want to go find that property for them. You need to start learning to look at it from an investor's eyes. Investors don't care if the floor plan is incredible, if it has high arching ceilings, all the thing that our picky like buyer clients want. Investors care about, will this thing make me money? We want two things. We want to know it will cash flow positively, and we want to know we're buying it for less than what it's worth, right? That's not hard to figure out as an agent. We call it the after repair value. That's the amount of property is worth after it's fixed up. So you just need to figure out three numbers to know if a property it makes financial sense. What can I buy it for? What will it cost to fix up? And what will it be worth when we're done? And if those first two numbers, what we buy it for and what it costs to fix up, are significantly less than what it would cost, what it's worth when we're done, your investor is likely going to buy it. The other thing you just figure out is, will it cash flow? Right? And that's not too hard to figure out either, but I'll tell you a good rule of thumb that every realtor can learn is, the closer that the rent is to 1% of the value of the property, the more likely it will cash flow. So if you're selling a house for 150 grand, you're looking for rent that's around 1,500. If you're selling a house for 100 grand, they're going to want the rent to be around 1,000. If you can just figure out those two things, you can make a lot of money working with investors.
Yep. Love it. Now, is there ever, like, let's just say a young, brand new realtor that maybe is listening to this show right now that's like, hey, man, I want to work with investors, but I don't necessarily know the answers to those questions, right? But was there ever a time where you'd go, like, if a new hungry agent somehow heard you on one of those podcasts from Bigger Pockets or all the other places that you're at and was like, David, man, I'm new, but I'm hungry. I'll work harder than anybody will work for you. Almost like a little bit of a mentorship program. And look, dude, like, shit, I'll waive the first couple of commissions or whatever, just to develop that relationship and have you mentor through the process. I mean, is there a point where you'd be open and willing to do that?
Oh, I would absolutely do it if I found somebody that understood, like, well, the value I'm giving them is learning and the value they're giving me is work. I mean, I think that's where the smartest business people start off, not worrying about what they're making right away, but worrying about what they're learning, because it's what's in your head that will ultimately determine how much money you make.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. So then, all right. So you're doing this, you're continuing to add these properties, your portfolio, continue to add success. Then I also know, man, you've got your own crazy, insane, successful real estate team, that you're running and selling a lot of deals. Like, what leads you into that?
So basically I'm working like legit 100 hours a week as a police officer. I'm sleeping in my car. I'm working 20-hour days, and I'm just trying to save up every dime that I can, because I got this like addiction of buying rental property, and I'm seeing it's building my wealth real fast. And at a certain point, I kind of realized, I know more about real estate than the agents I'm working with. And I'm referring all my friends to these agents who then call me and say, David, what should I do? Because the agent doesn't know what to tell them. And I realized, why don't I just get my own license and serve these people? So I did, and it just took off way faster than I thought it would. And Josh, as well as I do, that like, in order to be a really successful realtor, being good at your job is part of it. But even more importantly is just owning the mind share of the people in your life. When they think real estate, I want David Greene to be the first thought that pops in their head. And I kind of had a head start on that because they all knew me as an investor, right? They were calling me, slumlord and Donald Trump and all this stuff before he was president. And that was like a bad word. But they all knew me as a real estate guy. So when I got my license, it just made sense. Like, oh, let me go to David. He knows his stuff. He should represent me. Then all I had to do was learn, like, how do you communicate with people? That was the biggest hurdle that I had. I can't talk to everyone the way I like to be talked with. I'm real direct. I'm real to the point. Kind of had to learn to smooth out some of those conversations. And it started to do really well. But I really believe that I wasn't a brand new realtor trying to learn the whole business. I already understood real estate. And I think that for most new agents, what I would tell you is, half of it is learning to connect with people, and the other half is actually knowing your stuff. If you understand the fundamentals of how real estate works, when you talk to people, they could tell. It'll develop your own kind of inner confidence, and you'll start craving these conversations that will make you look good. And then you're more likely to go seek them out and actually start having them. Like, lead generating becomes fun because you get to talk about something you know a lot about and you love, instead of a chore because you just feel like I got to make 100 phone calls before I can go home for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So out of curiosity, man, I mean, now that you have all this going on, are you still a police officer as well, or did you hang up the helmet on that, and is this now your full focus?
About 7 months ago, I took a leave of absence because I wanted to build up my team. I hired a couple assistants, and I'm kind of like training them and teaching them to support me so that I can go focus more on like what I do well, which is actually like finding clients and explaining what we're going to do, and then training them how to kind of service the clients and service the escrows. So I haven't been there for 7 months. It's a position where if like we hit the purge, you know, like everything just goes crazy, they can call me back in and say, hey, we need you. But as long as everything's fine, then like I get to do my own thing and figure out if I want to do this full time or if I want to go back.
Yeah. So then when it comes to your real estate team, because we were talking before we hit the record button here. I mean, it's not just a real estate, you know, your typical realtor production. I mean, you're doing this year, you're on track to do about over 15 times what the average agent does in a year. Right.
Right.
However, like you're the one agent, you just have, backed by some amazing admin. Kind of talk to us about how you built your team, what that structure looks like. Also, man, are you niche specific? Meaning, are you really just niching down working with investors? Or are you working with traditional buyers and sellers as well?
So I'm not working with hardly any investors, as odd as that is, because I'm known as like the investor guy. I actually have a lot of clients or other agents in my office that work with more investors than me. I'm trying to figure out like, how did that end up happening? Most of my clients have been people who are wanting to sell their house and move into another one. And because I know the numbers of real estate really good, like I can crunch numbers and tell you what your payment will be, what your expenses will be, how much equity you have, the return on your equity, and then turn around and say, if we sell your house for X, we only have to borrow Y to get you the house you want, and your payment at Y will be this much. And I can make an argument like, hey, look, you can move from here to 45 minutes closer to work. Your payment's only going to go up $200. It becomes like a no-brainer, right? So I'm getting to sell their house and help them go on the buy side. I really feel that gives me advantage over other agents who are just like, hey, tell me when you're ready to sell. I'm here. That's kind of the extent of what they do. I can actually present a case that you should sell. It's in your family's best interest to go sell. When I realized that that's where I'm having my success, is that I can actually sit down and not just tell people, hey, I'm here for you when you want to sell your house, but I can make kind of like a whole game plan, a whole strategy for how we're going to accomplish this whole thing and show you what it'll look like at the end. I realized that I needed to be spending my time doing that. And what was killing me was all the little daily tasks that realtors have. I mean, people think being a real estate agent is a job, and it's not. It's like 20 jobs. The skills that you need to meet and connect with people are way different than the organizational skills that you need to make sure that everything gets done. And they're way different than the intellectual skills that you need to be able to crunch numbers and tell them what their property taxes are going to be and figure out what's going on with the HOA. They're just different, and you're never going to be good at all of them, right? And I was blessed that I realized right away, this is draining me. Like, these aspects of the job make me just not want to do it. But I was so good at the other aspects, I didn't want to quit. So Gary Keller talks a lot about your first hire needs to be an admin assistant, and then your second hire needs to be an admin assistant. And I think all of us are really skeptical about that. Like, no one can do the job as good as me, right? Well, I found that not only do they do the job better than me, but they're better at communicating with my clients a lot of time than I am. Like, I've hired these girls that just have hearts of gold. They love to serve people. They love to love on people. One of the things that I would hate is when I got to call a client and go over the inspection report, and it's like 45 minutes of them vomiting their fears all over me because the sliding glass door sticks a little bit. And you got to just kind of listen to this whole thing before you say, hey, it's going to be fine, right? It was killing me. So what I learned is if I have my assistant call first and they just vomit their fears all over her, and she's really good at just kind of like loving on them and letting them know it's going to be okay and writing down what the actual questions they are, I call them back and I have the answer to those 3 questions, and it's like a 7-minute conversation, and I'm not drained from it, right? And my assistant actually gets energized from those conversations because that's her personality. She loves that. And it clicked with me, like, I need to get myself out of every part of my business that I'm not the best at. I need to hire somebody else to do those things. My clients will love it, and I'll love it. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant, The hostess who greets you and makes you feel welcome is different than the guy in the back who can work in 100-degree heat and cook your food. And they're different than the waiter who knows the menu inside and out. And they're different than the busboy who's hustling around, running around, getting everything ready. If you had one person doing all of those things, the restaurant wouldn't work that well, right? We look at our real estate agent business like it's a job and you got to do everything. I look at it like it's a business and I got to hire people that are good at the things that I'm not that good at or I don't want to do.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you know, right out of the gate, you did a really good job at identifying what your strengths are, what you like, but also identifying the things that drain your energy, which I don't think a lot of people spend time really thinking that, you know, about that, which is so critical, right? Because if you can focus 100% on your time on your gifts and what you enjoy doing, man, does your life immediately change. But then once you identified that, right now you're finding people that their strengths are your weaknesses, right? Well, a lot of people have a difficult time finding those right people, you know, right? So when you're finding those people, what are you doing to ensure that you have the right people? I mean, are you doing, you know, personality profile testing or how do you make sure that you have the right people for each of those positions?
Man, you're asking great questions here, Josh. That's actually like a full-time job in and of itself. Keller Williams has an entire system set up that really helps us to find and identify talent called the career visioning process. They have a personality test that we can give people that tells me a ton about them. I use the DISC test. I mean, I put a lot of stock in that thing. I love it. I'm trying to profile people on the DISC test like everywhere I go, both for me to know how to communicate with them and also to know what their potential strengths are. And then the other thing, it's that same principle I talked about earlier where rock stars know rock stars, right? I don't want to put an ad on Craigslist and say, who wants a job? Because you're going to get 100 people that raise their hand and say, I want a job. And the reason they don't have a job is because they weren't good at their last job, right? I want to ask the people who are killing it at what they do, who do you know that is like you and would also kill it? That's kind of where I make like my bread and butter. You know, if you're looking for a lead to sell a house, you're not going to go to like, you know, wander around Home Depot and just find a random person and say, do you want to buy or sell a house? You're going to go to people, an area where you know people are gainfully employed and likely own real estate already and say like, hey, when you need to sell, I'm ready. I go to the title reps. I go to the escrow offices. I go to the lenders. I go to the stellar HVAC guy that just blows you away and you're like, I love that dude. And I say, hey, I'm looking to hire people like you. Who do you know in your life that you respect their work ethic? Because if they're like you, I'm going to like them, right? And sometimes they have names and sometimes they don't. But rather than just lead generating for deals, I'm actually lead generating for like employees. And I'm calling these guys every month and saying, hey, I just want to know, have you found anybody like you? Have you come across anyone you think is really good? And you'll be surprised. I get leads of like, hey, you need to go talk to this girl at Sprint. I just went to buy a phone and she was awesome. She knew everything there was to know. She was super helpful. She was on top of it. This other girl wasn't doing anything and she took over and did her job. Or you need to go meet this waitress. That girl was incredible. Like she blew me away with how good she was, right? And you and I know those are skills that will translate into any kind of sales business. They don't have to just be in a restaurant. And then I go and I sit down and I tip them really good and I give them a card and I say, hey, if you love your job, that's great. If you ever want to talk about a new job, let me know. I'd like to talk to you about how real estate works and how you can make money in it.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then, you know, for me, I mean, I started my team a long time ago, right? 2006, before YouTube, before Facebook, before podcasts like this. And you know, I did it somewhat right in that I hired out a great admin operations side first, but then I went right away to start hiring agents once I hit that capacity. And, you know, I always tell agents that if I could do it all over again, you know, right, I would have hired out fully on the operations side plus an inside sales agent. So then from there, I'm just going on the appointment, negotiating contracts all day long. And it's theory because I haven't done it, but I truly believe is me being the only practitioner as far as the only agent on the contracts at that way, I could be doing 20 deals a month, right? I mean, the capacity can be so huge with that. So I love the model that you're doing, man. Do you ever see at any point you evolving though where you will eventually be bringing on agents to continue supporting?
Man, it's like you and I are sharing the same brain. This is cool. What you just said is exactly what I'm doing. There's people now that are coming and saying they want to work as an agent on my team, right? And of course I would love that. I'm loath to do it because I want to feel like I have the operation stuff like a fine-tuned machine before I bring the agent in. I want to be able to tell them, this is the CRM, this is your assignment for today, these are the phone calls you will make, this is everything the assistants will do for you, before I kind of bring them in and try to have them like get acclimated as we're putting it all together, right? My goal is to do exactly what you just said. I've got 2 full-time admin and I've got part-time ISA. We want to get him full-time and even maybe hire a third corporate admin, as crazy as that sounds, right? With all those people, I don't think a lot of realtors understand the advantage I have having like an army of admin teams, because I can literally just go to listing appointments. Like, can I explain even like the story real quick of how I work with buyers?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even need a buyer's agent, right? Someone comes to me and says, David, I want to buy a house. I immediately go and do a sit-down meeting with you and have a face-to-face conversation, explain everything from A to Z we're going to have happen. And I show my value, and they're usually like, yeah, you're my guy. I want to use you. They sign a buyer-broker agreement. We start sending them houses. My assistant is communicating with them every day. What houses do you want to see? What kind of search do you want to be on? What do you like? When they go to her and they say, hey, I like these 5 houses, she calls the other agents and she says, hey, we want to schedule these, see these on Saturday between 11 and 1. She sets all the appointments. She goes in my Google Calendar. She puts in every single house's address and the order that we're going to go see it into my calendar that's on my phone. And she prints out all the printouts from each house from the MLS. I grab that folder with me. I drive to the first house. I open the door and I show it to them. We go down the list as I just touch the address on my phone that she's already put into my calendar. I show them the 5 houses. They go on their way, and I say, I'll call you tonight after you guys have had a chance to discuss the 5 and see what offers you want to write on each one. They tell me like maybe the 2 out of the 5 that they like. My assistant jumps in and she pulls comps on each area and makes the phone calls to the other realtors and says, do you have any offers in hand? What do you think it's going to sell for? Do you guys have any specific terms that you're looking for? Do you need a rent back? Will you accept a contingent offer? Gets that information to me. I talk to the clients. I tell my assistant, like, hey, this is the information I want you to write up in the contract. She puts it all in there for me. I pull it up. I make sure it looks the way it's supposed to look. I send it off to the other agent. They send it back. We do a little negotiating, and I put it in contract. Then I send it off to my escrow team, and I don't see it again unless something goes wrong. Like, and that whole process, and you and I both know working with buyers is the worst. I mean, like, it just takes so much of your time, right? I'm only meeting with them for that initial meeting to get the buyer broker agreement signed, and then showing them houses. And the rest of it's just phone calls and text messages to clarify something, because my assistants are calling every day and saying, hey, David wanted me to call and let you know that your inspection is scheduled for Wednesday. Do you want to be there or not? Right? I can get so much done that I don't have to share the commission with another agent when I have this assistance that's teeing me up so that I can go in and do my part, right? And eventually, when I'm too busy for that, I'll hire a showing assistant. And they will actually show my clients the houses, and I'll just call them the minute they get done seeing the last house and say, hey, what'd you think? So they still feel like I'm a part of this whole process, and then get it under contract and pass it off again. I won't need to hire other agents to split my deals with until I'm doing like 20 a month, like what you said. Like, there's just no way I can't go and show houses, or I can't go to this many listing appointments at a time. And then I won't have to hire agents just to work my deals, but I'll be hiring agents and teaching them how to go get their own deals. And I can still pick the clients I want to work with and only give away the ones I don't.
Yep. Love it. Yeah. I've got a good friend of mine that does the showing agent model actually in Sacramento. And yeah, it's like, he pays him $750 once the property closes, just to go out there and show properties. But like you said, then he retains the whole commission, and it's, when your profit margin, once you bring on agents, gets cut so thin so quickly.
Right.
That you got to be careful with how you structure it. So love it, man. So, all right, dude. So what are you doing then? Just out of curiosity, man, because you're in a very competitive market. The Bay Area is a very competitive market. You're obviously killing it in a very competitive market, hardcore sellers market. What are you doing as far as lead gen today and certain things that are effective, even as the market is so competitive?
People are not going to want to hear this, because realtors are always looking for that magic bullet, that Zillow lead or whatever. I've never bought a lead. I rarely get referrals. It's almost all circle of influence, the sphere of the people I know, and making a concerted effort to stay in touch with them. And I want to own that market share in their mind. So when they think of real estate, they think of David. I'm not competing with 4 other realtors in their mind, because I'm already the guy, right? So I like to look at what my goal is and kind of work backwards from there. Say like, okay, what I want is every time someone thinks real estate, they think David Greene. How do I do that? All right, if I can do some stuff that people will think is cool, they're more likely to hear about me. So everything that we sell goes on Facebook, Instagram. Like, that's obvious. You need it in front of people's eyes all the time. This is pending. This is sold. This is under contract. This just closed. All the pictures of the clients getting their keys and putting the bow on the door and their gifts, that all goes there. Then I take it another step and I say, okay, recording podcasts, right? That gives you some credibility in people's eyes. You can say, hey, if you want to learn more about this part of real estate, check out my podcast at this thing. When I meet a new person or I reconnect with somebody from my life that I haven't talked to in a little while, I start the conversation. And if it steers in a direction of them being interested in my new career, I'm like, hey, why don't you listen to me on this podcast? This guy was awesome. Joshua Smith is like one of the best realtors in the country. You can't even pay him to coach you at this point. I just did his podcast. Check out our conversation. And they walk away thinking in their head, David must be really good. He's on Josh's podcast. I filmed an episode for House Hunters, and I'm going to do some more of those, right? Truth be told, you don't have to be a super great agent to be on House Hunters. It's all just about like working really hard and being willing to give up what you got to give up to get there. But in the average person's mind, they think if you're on House Hunters, you must be elite. You must be the best, right? Increases my market share in their mind. Every time I have conversations with people, I find a way to very casually bring up the best part of the last deal I did. So I'm always, when they say, hey, how's it going, David? Oh man, it's awesome. I just closed on this house. You're not going to believe it. We got them $70,000 over asking price, and they waive these contingencies. Isn't the Bay Area market crazy? I'm subtly letting them know, like, I'm the man. I'm really good at this, but I don't sound arrogant because I'm not bragging about myself. I'm saying, isn't the market crazy? Isn't it crazy what real estate's doing right now, right? It seems like insignificant things, but in the minds of the people you talk to, you're positioning yourself at the very front so that when they want to sell their house, they're calling you, right? Or they're telling their friends, not, hey, I have a realtor if you need one. They're like, stop right there. I'm going to have David call you. You don't want to talk to someone else. Trust me. Little things like that you actively make an effort to do will gain you that market share in your own circle's influence. And you're not having to compete with four other realtors because in their head, you're the guy regardless.
Yep. Love it. So then with that, man, when it comes to your circle of influence that you have, you talked about things that you're posting on social media, and it's not in their face, please send me referrals, right? You're just living your life through Facebook, what you're doing for your clients. And I'm sure you're posting other personal stuff on there as well. Outside of that, is there anything else intentionally that you do as far as, you picking up the phone and making sure you have a conversation with everybody you know every 90 days or, anything outside of that you're doing to keep those relationships alive?
Yeah, I spend about 2.5 to 3 hours every day, what we call lead generating. Some people call it prospecting. It's just calling people and having conversations. And I think you made a really good point. I don't say, can you send me a referral? I think that's the worst thing an agent could say, right? What I'm doing when I call them is I'm saying, hey, what's going on in your life? And they'll tell me. And I'm saying, what do you need help with right now? Okay. If they're running a small business, ask them what their biggest source of frustration is. Because what I've found is that people always have something at the front of their mind. And until that problem is solved, they don't care what's going on in the back of their mind. Okay. So if you're like worried your girlfriend's going to leave you, I can tell you about the great deal on a house and it's running somewhere in your back of your mind, but the front of your mind, you don't care until you get your relationship straightened out, right? Your kid's in trouble in school. If you think you might lose your job, whatever you have going on, I want to connect with that, right? What is causing you pain right now and how can I help you fix it? So small business owners, I spend a lot of time talking to them. How can I help you hire some people? What are some things that I did to hire people that I know that will help you? How do I get you more leads? How do I get you more referrals? And when you do that for somebody, man, it's like you got to be the worst person in the world to not want to give back, right? If you do something for me, you're like, hey, Dave, I know you're looking to buy some investment property. I got 3 awesome deals and you send them my way. I'm actively looking for something I can do to give you something back to show my appreciation. And that's like a natural human response. I think that's where most of us are missing it. We're calling people and telling them what we want, not calling them and saying like, what do you need and how can I help you? So one of the principles of our business is we always will give more than what we receive. So I always want to make sure that balance is like, on the negative side for me, like I've given you more than what you've given me back. And as long as I do that, people will send you their referrals once you let them know that that's what you want.
Yep. Love it, dude. Love it, man. So then, as far as you personally, man, have you always been like this, systematic operations-based type of a person? And like you just talked about, so focused on the relationships, or were there, pivotal things that you've been through, whether it's been like books that you've read or trainings that you've been through that help you discover, all this powerful stuff that you're doing today?
That's such a good question too. All right, I'll tell you the honest to God truth. I was like a social retard for almost my whole life. Man, I was just, you can ask people that have known me. At weddings, I'd stand in the corner. I did not like talking to people I didn't know. I like to scope people out and get to know who they were before I ever opened up. And as a police officer, your goal is like, how do I read the cards of the suspect without letting them read mine? If I know he's got a warrant and I'm stalling for time, I don't want him to know that I know. Right? My whole life became like, how do I hide when I'm really thinking and feeling and figure out what you are? And then I got into real estate and then like, that does not work. People do not like to be intimidated into buying a house, right? All these skills that I had built up for my whole life as like an athlete, and a police officer are useless in this world. And I've had to completely like revamp my whole mind. It feels like exercising when you've never exercised your whole life and all these muscles have never been used that way. Learning how to connect with people has been hard. Learning how to be purposeful with my actions when before they weren't has been hard. I read a lot of books about this. I spend a lot of time talking to people about it. It's on the front of my mind because this is something that I care about a lot because I really want to be the best. I want to do really good with real estate. And I've learned I know a lot in my mind, but it doesn't matter if I can't connect with people and get it out there so that they can see that I know, right? In fact, I'm sure you would agree. You don't even have to know that much about real estate to be really successful. You just have to be really good at connecting with people. That's where the money is going to be made. So I make an active effort to learn how to connect with people because I know that that's a weakness of mine and I don't want that to hold me back.
Yep. Yep. Love it, dude. So then, a question I always get, I'm going to ask this to you, because of, all your experience of the years of being a police officer, in my training programs and on the podcast, even teammates, I get asked this question, especially from women real estate agents, because we hear of, the unfortunate things that can happen out there. When it comes to safety, man, like what's some suggestions, just again, with all of your experience as a police officer for realtors out there? Because a lot of times we're showing people, strangers that we've never met before, homes, and, we can be put in some vulnerable situations. If somebody asked you for that, hey, how when I'm in these situations, how can I somewhat ensure if there is a way, either safety, like what recommendations would you give that?
Yeah. When I hear about this happening most often, it's usually like you said, a stranger you haven't met hits you up from the internet and they're like, hey, can you go show me a house, right? My personal philosophy with business is I will not go show you a house until you've met with me in person. We've had a face-to-face meeting and I decide we're a good fit. I don't want to work with every buyer out there. I'm not the best fit for every buyer out there. And if you're not committed to spending an hour just talking with me about what your goals are and you think I'm just like this asset that you're going to use for your own gain, like, hey, I just need you to open a door and that's it, we're not going to work very well together. And I think if more agents insisted on like, no, I will not meet you at a house, someone I don't know, and open you the door, you're going to come into my office, you're going to meet me, you're going to see that there's other guys walking around in here and this is like a professional setting. If he's not willing to do that, that kind of is going to screen out a lot of those creeps who basically just like found you online, you look pretty, and he said, I want her to show me the house. I think that's like the number one thing that everyone should start doing. Before you show people houses, you need to have them come meet with you and see if you're a good fit and get them to get a buyer broker agreement signed if you can. At least have a pre-approval letter, right? Have already called their lender to make sure this person is legit. Like another person knows they exist and who they are, and other people have seen them. You have all that contact information. And then obviously you don't want to be showing houses late at night. That's another problem. If they want to go show houses late at night, you should have another realtor that's like a male and say, hey, I have a showing assistant. He can show you the house this day. And if they never want to go unless it's you showing the house, that's another sign like something's not right about this.
Yep. Love it. Couldn't agree more, man. So then, dude, you're at a point where you're having big success with both. And not saying that there's ever a reason why, one needs to stop and you can't grow your real estate investment business along with your real estate business. But now that you've had a taste of success in both areas, do you find yourself being more pulled to one area or kind of enjoying one area more than the other?
I think that I enjoy investing more, but I think I'm more interested in learning about the agent stuff because it's forcing me to grow more. I've got my investment system down to a point where it's literally, I get a text from an agent that says, hey, we should buy 123 Main Street. I forward that text to the contractor and the property manager. The property manager comes back with a thumbs up or thumbs down on, is this an area you want to be in or not? The contractor calls the agent and says, hey, let me in the house tomorrow at 3 so I can get him a bid. The agent calls the other agent and says, hey, I think we can get it for 80 grand. Your after repair value is going to be about 120, right? So now I'm looking for that contractor to come back and say it's going to be about 20,000 or less. If once I have all that information, if he says it's 25,000, I'm just going to tell the agent, hey, we need it at 75 or it won't work. See if you can get under contract at that. That's like the extent of the work that I did until it is in contract and I'm starting like a new round of new due diligence, like digging in a little bit deeper. It doesn't take much of my time whatsoever. The most time I spend on that is on the phone with contractors, like figuring out what work we're going to do and what we're going to pay for it. And I'll soon have an assistant on my team who's going to have those conversations for me, so I don't even have to do that. The agent stuff is just so much more challenging in that you're trying to learn 20 jobs, right? I'm trying to grow as a person and learn how to add value to people so that I can connect better. I'm trying to learn how to be a leader so that the people that are already on my team will be inspired. I'm trying to learn how to be a business manager and hirer and find talent and convince them to come with me and find ways to make them successful. It's like a workout every single day that I know is getting me in good shape. And whatever I go do after I've like put a CEO in place to run my team for me, whenever that happens, I'll benefit from all these skills that I'm learning right now. Maybe I'll go run a fund and I'll buy like lots of houses at one time and manage people in the same way. So I think that naturally for me, investing is more fun just because there's just less emotions involved in it. Like when you're an agent, and like there's a lot that's out of your control. How other people feel can affect your destiny a lot. But I'm learning so much right now from learning how to run this team that this is where I feel my time is best spent.
Yep. Love it, dude. So for realtors out there, because I think every realtor's, deep down has a dream of becoming a real estate investor, right? To kind of become our own client and create that. We all know, obviously, the wealth that it can create. But big success doesn't come without big sacrifice, right? Realtors are typically the first ones to go out there and buy the Mercedes or buy the Rolex or buy, stupid liabilities and don't invest that for assets. What kind of on a financial level, what kind of a recommendation when it comes to living below your means so you can have the funds to go out there and create true wealth? Like what kind of suggestions or recommendations as far as how disciplined people need to get to go out there and create that true wealth?
So I think when we're talking to our clients about why they should do the same thing you said, why should you save money to buy a house instead of renting, right? I give them this story of, my parents bought their first house in, 32 years ago or whatever, in a city called Manteca, California for $62,000. That house is now worth about $350,000 and it would have been paid off by now. It's been more than 30 years. So they would have turned 62 into 350, but they really wouldn't have turned 62 into that. They would have turned about 6,000 into that because that's all they would have put down. You just turned $6,000 into $350,000 and somebody else did all the work of paying it off for you. Right? Real estate is immensely powerful when you understand over time how ridiculously powerful it is at building your wealth. I mean, you're literally buying an asset with mostly the bank's money and then having your tenant pay the bank back for you while inflation carries the value of that thing really, really high. And it earns you cash flow every single month that you could either save, spend, or put back into the house to pay it off even faster. Then you can refinance it with no taxes at all and go buy like 20 more, right? I want that house to buy me my Mercedes. I don't want to buy that Mercedes. I look at money. I wrote a blog post on my website, greenincome.com, about how money is like a seed, right? You get an apple, you can take the seeds out and you can plant them and you can grow an orchard, or you can eat it right then and there and have nothing. When you buy that Mercedes, man, you're like eating a future orchard, because you want to have the instant gratification of that stupid car right now. If you like Mercedes, man, let that drive be what propels you to save money as much as you can and invest it as wisely as you can so you can have 5 of them, right? If you just go gratify yourself on that drive right away, you got your car, but you lost out on your future. I'll hit a point where I won't even have to think about how much something costs because I'll have so many rental properties that are generating so much income that I can have whatever I want, that I can buy a Mercedes for a friend if that's what I want to do instead of just having it right now. I think the people that struggle with saving money just don't understand how powerful it is when money compounds over time. Like they just don't understand that you could literally have an orchard and have more apples than you could ever even eat if you worked on planting the seeds that come from that tree and so forth. And the other thing I would say is I don't think your clients really care you drive a Mercedes, man. I drive a Toyota Camry, to be completely honest with you. And I've never had a person say you can't sell my $1 million house because you're in a Camry. Ever. I think it's much more impressive to tell your clients, man, not only am I a real estate agent, but I own real estate. I've got 25 houses all over the country and I plan on having 100 in the next 3 years, right? That says something to them more than just I drive a fancy car.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just in my own personal experience, right? Like I sold no more real estate in my $20,000 Nissan Xterra than, the $100,000 Jaguar, right? Like people don't care. It's ego stroke on our own level. Yep. If anything, I think the opposite is true. When you drive too fancy a vehicle, there's that judgment of you make way too much money.
Yeah, and then you're justifying your commission to someone who's looking at you driving a Jaguar saying, you really think I need to pay you 20, not 15?
Right.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yep. Yep, 100%, dude. So let's talk about the book, man. I mean, because you know, obviously you're going out there, you're creating your team, you're creating all this wealth through your real estate buying, but then you decide to create this book and give to the world, you know, all this brilliance that's in your own head. Like, what led you to wanting to go out there and do that?
All right. So have you ever read The One Thing, the Gary Keller book?
Yeah, about 6 times.
Okay, it's a great book, right? Chapter 2, he talks about the domino effect, the geometric progression. A 2-inch domino can knock over a 3.5-inch, and it goes forward. And by like the 18th domino, you're knocking over the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? Before I read that book, I understood that principle, but I just couldn't articulate it like him. Life works that way. I was buying these rental properties, and I finally worked up the courage to say, hey, I'd like to go on Bigger Pockets podcast, right? I thought maybe in a couple of years, they'll finally get around to me. When they heard my story, they said, we want to put you on in 3 days. Like my first podcast I ever did, right? So I'm nervous. I'm scared to death. I'm reading like everything online I can find about how to do a good podcast. I go do the podcast, and they said, this is one of the best ones we ever did, right? Knocked over a domino. I then said to them, hey, I love your blog. Do you guys mind if I write blog posts? They said, sure, send us a sample. If it's good, we'll post it. So I write like the best sample I could ever write. Like just, I had a bunch of people proofread it, worked in it forever. They said, this is fantastic. We're making this the editor's choice. I said, okay, I'm going to write some more. They said, great. I asked their their blog lady, what makes a good blog? She sent me a list of the top performing ones. She said, they got to be really lengthy. They got to be centered towards newbies. They have to be specific in these areas. So I wrote blogs according to what they wanted, not according to what I thought I liked. And then they started putting me as editor's choice every time. Eventually they came and said, hey, you write really, really well and you're really popular on the site. Would you like to write a book? I said, heck yeah. They said, what do you want to write it on? I said, how about investing out of state? That's kind of the thing I do and no one else really does it. It's not hard at all. People should know how simple it could be. That led to the book deal, right? Once I have a book deal coming out, House Hunters is that much more likely to let me be on their show. These dominoes are just starting to get knocked over and they're bigger and bigger and bigger. Now that I've been on House Hunters, I can go to really ritzy areas out here and I can talk to people and they think I was on House Hunters, so I must be the best and I'm getting these really expensive listings. Now that makes it much easier to get the cheaper listings because they see me selling the $1 million houses, not just the $300,000 houses. At every level, those dominoes have just been falling and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it makes it that much easier to knock over the next one. And I think most people knock over a domino and they pat themselves on the back and say, look what I did, and they stop. They don't say like, where's the next one that I can knock over, right? Because I'm just now getting a taste of this. I'm starting to think really big, you know? What if I film 5 more episodes for House Hunters and I do so good on every episode that they say we want this guy to be on all the time and I get my own show for a year, right? Now people on TV have seen, hey, this guy's got his own show. Hey, I know him, like Chip and Joanna, right? What in the world can Chip and Joanna not do right now that they would want? They've got it by the tail, right? Imagine how easy it is to go to Beverly Hills and sell $10 million houses when you can say you're the guy that's been on TV. How much money you're making then. Imagine when you're that guy that sells these $10 million houses in Beverly Hills, how much easier it will be to draw more agents to want to work on my team. And then when I'm making all that money, I can hire even more admin to help. Like the whole thing just starts to grow when you start realizing that one domino can knock over one that's a little bit bigger too. And I think that if your listeners can start to really believe like this, he's not just making this up. Anyone can do what I did. I'm just a freaking cop, man. I'm not like a hedge fund manager that went to Stanford. You know, I've just capitalized on every opportunity that I had and turned it into one that's a little bit bigger. And now there's a lot of momentum going and it makes my job easier for me.
Yep. Love it, dude. Yeah, I was speaking about a year ago on stage with Josh Altman. So it was him and I and a couple other speakers, and dude, the amount of business that he's gotten, his business, how it's exploded since being on that show. Like you said, it's just insane, man. It's that instant credibility, man. It's so powerful. So with the book, I mean, do you ever see yourself going to a point where, or getting to a point where, you know, you become a mentor in that space, not just from the book, but, you know, like Robert Kiyosaki, he created some wealth in real estate, but he created massive wealth in writing books and having programs and selling games and other things, teaching people his strategies. Do you ever see that being a part of your future?
I think that, like, to be honest, you've kind of carved out like the ultimate path of how, like, if I look at the dominoes you've knocked over, you're just like 20 dominoes ahead of me, right? But it's the same principles that you're working on that I'm working on. And I think that that's kind of where it should always lead. When you get the information in your head, And like I was telling you earlier, like that's where the real value is. It's what's between your ears. It's not just the money you're making right now. You can go help one person by going on a listing appointment, or you can help 500 people by teaching other agents how to go do that at a listing appointment. You know, like you revolutionized the way that agents hold open houses. You could have continued holding open houses and help sell homes, but look at the impact you've had on real estate by sharing the tips that you've used to hold open houses. And now any agent who wants it can go copy it and they can have that success. I think that's kind of the natural progression. You get to a point where you realize like I can do more if I spread the word than if I just continue to do it myself. And I honestly have fun talking about this stuff and teaching it, you know. Like there's days as a real estate agent that are very stressful, and I've come to realize it's because like I don't have total control over everything. I'm you know, responding to my client's emotions or to somebody else who made a mistake and I got to go fix it. When you're in a position of like teaching and training other people, you just have a lot more control over how your day goes and who you spend your time with and what can affect you. So I do think that's where I'd like to go, but I'm not afraid to be like in the trenches right now, paying my dues and kind of taking the bruises so that when I get to that point, I can help people even better.
Yep. Love it, dude. Powerful stuff, man. So, you know, we talked about what the book is about, right? And I think everybody can see the value and the success that it's created. And again, it's just that brilliance that you've had in your head that's made you be so successful that you've unpackaged and put in this book. And that's why I love books, you know, right? Like you get millions of dollars of information that somebody spent so much time and energy and money perfecting, and you get it for like freaking $20.
Yeah.
You know, right? Like books are so insanely powerful. With that being said, man, when's the book being released? Where can people go? Is there like a wait list? Where can people go to learn more about the book, get the book, or get on a list for when it's available to make sure they don't miss out on it?
So it's coming out mid-December, but you can order it right now at barnesandnoble.com. If you go on there and you type in my name and the long distance real estate investing, how to buy, rehab, and manage out-of-state rental properties, you could pre-order a copy now. There may be some bonus material that we're putting together for people that, you know, buy the book earlier and are on the waiting list. And the last time this publisher had a book come out, it sold out really quick. So it's definitely a good idea to get in there early. I'll be recording another podcast for Bigger Pockets to talk about a little bit more in depth pretty soon here, and that'll be coming out. What I'm most excited about with this book is just that I don't know anyone else who's talking about this. You know, like there was a time that investing in other states was really risky. Because for the guy in California that's hearing about a house costing $80,000, to us that's like free. But to the people in Wisconsin, you're like, man, that thing's worth 40. Right. But with the way that technology has increased so rapidly in the last 10 years, there's very little that I can't figure out about that area that people in Wisconsin don't already know. Right. The system I put together is almost foolproof in the sense that I don't ever worry about a contractor taking advantage of me because I have my real estate agent go verify his work before I pay him. And I have my property manager make sure that like the pictures got taken and I've already seen that the floors were put in before he gets that last draw. And I have my property manager make sure that the prices that the agents are telling me for the house in the area are right. And I have my agents making sure that the rents the property managers are telling me are accurate. There's always someone that's checking somebody else's work, and they would have to literally be in collusion against me to give me bad advice for it to go wrong. Before the internet, it was scary as heck, man. You didn't know what you're getting. You were just trusting that the broker out there was giving you good advice, right? But with as much information as we have right now and the ability to send pictures and videos from a phone, you can look up a rent on rentometer.com or Craigslist or call a property manager or email one and ask them what it'll rent for. I mean, I don't see hardly any of the properties I buy. All that stuff out there in Arizona that your agent Billy's been getting for me, never have I seen it, never do I need to. Billy goes and takes a video of the whole property, sends it to me. I know exactly what I'm getting at. The contractors go and do the work, and Billy goes and makes sure that they did it before I pay him. I don't have to buy property where I live. I can go to the market that makes sense to buy. You know, because when you get in real estate investing, like the Bay Area is a great place to flip a house, man. You can make $200,000, $300,000 on a house out here. But what about when you want to put your money somewhere that is going to earn you money long term? There's different markets that make more sense for different purposes. And I feel empowered that I can go wherever I want and buy houses instead of just, well, it's too expensive where I live. I guess I shouldn't invest.
Yep. Yeah, I love it, dude. Yeah, because I mean, with real estate being so hyper local, you're so right. Like you talked about that 1% rule, you know, in the Bay Area, you're probably not going to be able to find that right now. But in like Phoenix, where we're still 35% below what the peak was in 2005, right? Those numbers might work. Areas in Florida. I mean, there's always an area it works if you're able to expand, like you said, you're able to. And what I love about systems and inspecting what you expect, and this is, I guess, in a different different medium here, but between all my companies, right, I have over 200 people that work directly for me, and I don't manage one person. Right? Like, I don't have management headaches, man. I manage the systems that manage, empower, and keep my people accountable. I just check the system daily. That's it. Right? And I have no management headaches. And you've got that system, and in the book, you're going to give that away for free. So we'll make sure Troy gets the links. So those of you that are watching and listening, I don't care where you're at, we'll make sure to have a link below that you can go check pre-order the book. And those of you that are watching this after the fact, after December, because this will be available indefinitely, right? We'll make sure to update that so you can get the book right now as you're listening. So knowing everything that you know now today, dude, I mean, this journey, you've learned so much through this journey. Knowing everything you know now today, if you could rewind the clocks, if you could go, the David Greene today could go back to the David Greene of 2013, or maybe if you choose to rewind it to the clocks of like graduating high school before you went to college. If the David today could go back to the David in the past and give two pieces of advice that you feel would have massively fast forwarded all your success, what would those two pieces of advice be?
So the first thing I would have told myself is quit thinking that you're safe by being conservative. I think in my mind, those two terms are synonymous. And in the best real estate market I will probably ever see in my life to buy rental properties, I bought one a year because I was afraid, man, I got to be able to make the entire mortgage on every house for a year if I can't get a tenant in there. And there was no reason to think it would ever be that bad. I mean, I should have been scooping up as many houses as I could get when they cash flowed that strong. They needed no work. They were just laying around out there. And I thought I was being safe, and I actually cost myself a couple $1 million over the last 10 years because I didn't buy more. The second thing that I would say is quit worrying about the money you're making right now and worry about what you're learning right now. I mean, I was working like every day I could to go wait tables. And if I could make another $150, I thought that was awesome. If I would have just like read a half a book every shift and learned the information that was out there and then been prepared when the market turned around to know what I was doing, I would have cleaned up, right? I spent a lot of time thinking that I didn't have what it takes and it's harder to be successful than what it really is. I think I'm at a point now that I've realized there is so much opportunity if you're willing to go get it. And if you're willing to make the changes in yourself that are required to kind of succeed in that world, especially in real estate. Like, I played basketball and it was my passion, and there's physical limitations that kept me from being able to get to the NBA. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't fast enough. There's nothing I could do to fix that, right? But in this world, even being socially retarded, I could learn to work on that and overcome it, and there's nothing that can stop me. I mean, I'm doing 15 million this year. I don't see any reason why in a couple years I shouldn't be selling 50 to 100 million if I just keep on building these systems and hiring people to do the stuff and learning how to sell houses in different markets and how to talk to people. That's what I would tell myself. That I always say there's two ways to chop down a tree. You could either swing that axe more than everyone else, or you could sharpen it more, right? I focus way too much on swinging my axe more than everyone else and outworking them when I should have been focusing time on sharpening it. So when I finally got up to swing it, in 5 chops, the tree was down rather than the 500 that it needed with a dual axe.
Yeah. Comes back to Abraham Lincoln's famous quote, right? If you give me 6 hours and an axe to cut down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, love it, man. Love it, dude. So, I created this podcast so we could go back there and interview doers like yourself. No theory, there's enough smoke and mirrors that exists out there, but the doers that are truly creating success to give back to an industry that's 100% changed both of our lives. With that being said, man, those that are watching and listening are here because they want to go out there and create the best life for themselves that they can. Do you have any last words of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave them with so they can do exactly that?
Yeah, I would say that every accomplishment I've had has honestly been easier than what I thought it would be. I just need to get out there and start doing it. Like most of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, we hold back because we're afraid of not being good at something or thinking that we suck or we're not going to be that great. There's very few things in life that you can't figure out if you just consistently keep working at it and hang around with people that are already good at what they do. I would just say, I would tell people like, hey, I know that like the numbers we talk about as a first year agent doing this seem really crazy. They're not. I just spend more time hanging around with people that know I'm into real estate and spending my time where people who own homes are than staying in my comfort zone and hanging out with my buddies from high school that work at Safeway or Starbucks and they'll never own a house. Right. I made some subtle changes with my own personal lifestyle that put me in a position to be successful. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. If you're willing to do that, you can empower yourself and take over your life and make it the way that you want it to be rather than just the way it am. The problem most people have is they want life to change for them. Like they want stuff to come in the area where they're already at, where they don't have to change themselves. Like when I see all these guys protesting everything right now, they're always, what they're telling is the world, like, you need to change to fit what I want you to be. And I feel like we become really empowered when we quit wanting the world to change, but we start to change to fit the world. You know, Olympic athletes don't sit there and say, we need to lower the bar so that I could get over it. They say, I need to train to get over the top of that bar. I need to beat my body into making it what I want it to do for me. And they hit those levels of success. And, you know, we may never be Olympic athletes, but we can be that level of success at whatever our chosen vocation is.
Yep. Such powerful words, man. And those watching and listening, I know I interview podcasts for this, but information without implementation truly is just a sort of delusion. Information is not power. It's taking action on that information that creates power inside your life so you can create the life you know you want and deserve. And David shared so many just amazing, epic pieces of knowledge with you guys. It takes something that you learn and take immediate action on it. And again, below will be the link so you guys can pre-order or order, depending on where you're listening to this, David's book. Make sure to go take action and get that immediately. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. David, man, I know how busy you are. It's an honor having you on the show, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, dude.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it, man. And thank you for what you do. You're like a modern day Aristotle, and we can all learn from everything you have to say.
Hey, man, that truly means a lot. Truly appreciate it, brother. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time.